Hey, what is up guys? This is Bailey Stein with Android Authority, and you're watching our video review of the Meizu M3 Max. Meizu isn't packing any big surprises with the M3 Max's design, but that may not be such a bad thing. The M3 Max offers the same top-notch build quality that we've seen from Meizu in the past, and its all-metal construction provides an unmistakably tank-like feel. This design is admittedly uninspired, but it at the very least signifies a level of premiumness that has been steadily creeping into this price category. Design elements like the chamfered edges and subtle antenna lines are definitely a nice touch, especially for what you're paying. It's not a perfect design by any means though. Its side-to-back chamfers aren't enough to disguise a pretty boxy feel. It can be difficult to find the correct side button, as there aren't any tactile differences. One factor that you'll really want to consider is the sheer size of the M3 Max. Its 6-inch display can be both a blessing and a curse. The larger size is great for watching videos and playing games, but it can also be annoying to use with a single hand. It's an inevitable trade-off, and one that we advise you to consider very carefully. For navigation, Meizu does it a bit differently than other OEMs. Instead of a standard 3-key layout, there's a single physical button, which can be tapped to go back or pressed to go home. Although the style does take a day or two to get used to, it's remarkably intuitive to use. The button also functions as a fast and accurate fingerprint reader, which is an incredibly indispensable feature to have. Now, you may be wondering, but what do I do for multitasking? The answer to that question is actually quite simple. You just swipe up from the bezel on either side of the home button. As you can see, the multitasking menu scales up as you swipe, revealing any open apps. The M3 Max's 6-inch 1080p IPS display isn't overly impressive, but does the job. It's bright enough for indoor use, offers fairly accurate color reproduction, and is a great size for consuming media. Although sunlight readability and viewing angles aren't very good, it's important to keep in mind the phone's price. It would be a bit unreasonable to expect something like a Quad HD AMOLED panel, for example. The M3 Max is utilizing 3GB of RAM and a MediaTek Helio P10, which quite frankly offers poor performance. It may be octa-core, but it's one of MediaTek's lowest end chips, offering performance similar to what could be found in 2012. It's not just the benchmark scores that are bad with this one though. In real-world use, the phone lags quite frequently and is just generally sluggish. For example, in our testing, the M3 Max would randomly refuse to wake from sleep for around 10 to 30 seconds. While we can forgive a little bit of this, the M3 Max exceeds what we would consider acceptable. Gaming performance is also below average, as the Mali T860 GPU is outdated and simply does not offer the same performance as comparable Adreno options. The M3 Max is an unlocked dual SIM device and supports 4G LTE in official markets. If you're looking to import it, however, you may have trouble getting it to work with your carrier. In the United States, for example, it's not compatible with 4G LTE and is only partially compatible with 3G on AT&T and T-Mobile. You can substitute one SIM card for a microSD card though, up to 128GB if the phone's 64GB of internal storage isn't enough. Of course, we always like to see that option available. We did notice some minor Wi-Fi range issues during our time with the M3 Max, and although this may sound somewhat nitpicky, if you already have range issues in your household, this could be a major issue. For audio, we're looking at a single side-firing speaker. It's decent sounding, loud enough in most cases, but slightly distorted, more so at higher volumes. It again does the job, but if you want to consume media without headphones, it may not be the best option out there. Battery life was great though, as the 4100 mAh battery is enough to push through a full day of moderate to heavy use. Our testing was conducted while connected to AT&T's 3G network, so our numbers are expectedly inflated, but you should have no trouble reaching around the 4.5-hour mark over LTE. For fast charging, the Meizu M3 Max does 45% in 30 minutes with Meizu's proprietary M-Charge technology. We wish extra and car chargers were more accessible, and that Meizu would have used USB-C instead of the old micro USB standard. The 13-megapixel Sony IMX258 camera provides average results for this price category. Images look decent, but far from great. In bright lighting, color reproduction is generally good with respectable dynamic range. Many images feel punchy enough without being oversaturated too. However, images appear grainy even with good lighting. The post-processing struggles with bright colors, most notably pink and red. Images are also generally soft, and autofocus can be surprisingly hit or miss. Tapping the screen doesn't always work for obtaining a correct focus, which of course affected some of our shots. Other shots just appear soft in general. It's also not the quickest camera we've used, and although this is fine for still objects, it's troubling when trying to capture images of moving objects. Low light unfortunately makes things much worse. The grain is turned up to very distracting levels and colors appear more muted than in better lit conditions. Autofocus struggles even more too, resulting in some awfully soft images. Video recording is capped off at 1080p, which shouldn't be a big deal for a lot of people, but if 4K recording is important to you, know that there are similarly priced options that allow you to record better, higher resolution video. Meizu's Flyme OS makes a return with the M3 Max, on top of Android 6.0 Marshmallow. We're not expecting this phone to be upgraded to Nougat, but we can partially forgive that since Meizu frequently updates their Flyme skin with new features and refinements, oftentimes for up to 2 years after a phone release. The actual experience may appear jarring to an outsider. Its iOS-inspired design and lack of an app drawer are admittedly uncommon in Western skins, but Flyme remains one of the best Android skins we've used. It's different, but that doesn't make it bad. The amount of polish is admirable, and we have to credit Meizu for their dedication to improving Flyme over the past several years. Still, it can be annoyingly quirky for Western users. Issues like Hangouts occasionally just refusing to open until a reinstall is performed are unfortunately fairly common. The battery optimizations also aren't tailored to Western apps. For example, by default, the phone closes Spotify after 30 seconds of the phone screen being off, effectively stopping any music. This can be manually fixed by turning off optimizations for Spotify, but it shouldn't have to be. In China, the Meizu M3 Max can be purchased in black, silver, and gold for 1,700 yuan, or about $245. Pricing varies in other markets, and if you're looking to import, expect it to cost around $270. Although the M3 Max does well in some categories like software, battery life, and build quality, it doesn't offer any advantages over cheaper, similarly sized options. Instead of the Meizu M3 Max, we recommend the $220 Xiaomi Mi Max if you're in an official market for its better performance, superior camera, and similar software. Otherwise, you should consider the $100 to $150 ZTE Grand X Max 2 for its also better performance, greater availability, and nicer display. These phones also aren't perfect. The Mi Max's build quality is poor and the Grand X Max 2's camera is just very bad, but we feel that they are better options overall. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. Also, if you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Finally, be sure to visit the Android Authority website for additional coverage, as we are your source for all things Android.